Jane, what's your sense and your take of what the incident in Senekal, has highlighted for us as a community, as a society in South Africa, taking it from the criminal incident, the killing of Brendin Horner, but the reaction subsequent to that by some communities there in the Free State, as well as the marches that we saw at the court appearance last week?
Thank you. I just want to say, I think it's a thing that comes now for years. And if I can refer back to the implementation of the Rural Safety Strategy that was actually drafted and implemented in 2011 in Bethlehem in the Free State. So, and it was revised last year again in October in Limpopo. So there are a lot of issues and aspects in the Rural Safety Strategy that lack sufficient implementation. And I think all these things actually did boil up to frustration levels amongst the whole of the farming communities. We are actually not only referring to the producers that are mainly our members, commercial farmers. We're also referring to the impact and the extent of all crimes affecting the agricultural sector negatively. And that is actually all the people living on farms, staying on farms, the workers, their families, and the producers. And I think the lack in the implementation of the strategy and also the non-effective functioning of the criminal justice system has now for years been a contentious issue that gets discussed at priority committee meetings with all the stakeholders that signed off in the Rural Safety Strategy on a monthly basis. And there are really aspects that need urgent attention. And I want to refer to what the Minister of Police said at the 13th of October at the Meats Farmers Association Hall. We addressed the farming community there that the one of the suspects, and referred to that, was arrested 16 times. And in 12 of these cases, it was withdrawn. So the reasons for the withdrawal of these cases are not really clear. And we have requested that now for years at the priority committee meetings, that if we as the farming community and the union needs to step up, and with the SAPS and with the National Prosecuting Authority needs to train the farming communities as to the preserving of evidence and of crime scenes and of getting and producing better statements, then we need to do so.
Yeah.
But it's not acceptable that you have a situation that a person has been 16 times in court, and then in 12 of these cases it was withdrawn. So what are the reasons for that?
Jane, in the National Rural Safety Strategy that you allude to, there's an identification of some of the vulnerabilities of the vast expanses that are, farmlands as well as smallholder communities in South Africa. The figure cited there is some 87,000 farms in South Africa, and 33,000 of which are said to be commercial farms. That makes it difficult, given the sizes of these properties that we are talking about, to effectively police them. But you look at the strategy, now that you talk about it, it's got, for instance, on one of the pillars where it talks about building effective capacity. I mean, some of this makes sense to me when I read it as someone who's not a player in that sector. Deploying mobile police stations, canine units, as well as stock theft units. Have you seen anything that appears to be a shift in the slightest in trying to achieve some of these goals? A little bit of credit, if there is, in terms of implementing this, or was this a fantastic plan that was drawn up and then just put in the drawer there in the shelf to gather dust?
I think there is really progress in the implementation of the Rural Safety Strategy. And if I can say it like this, is that Free State Agriculture conduct every year an audit of the implementation of the Rural Safety Strategy. And we actually look at 8 criteria that is inclusive in the strategy. And the last 2 aspects on the criteria is what is the complaints in terms of service delivery especially by SAPs. And then the last one is what is the relationship between the farming communities and the SAPs in their specific area. So overall, I need to say that every time it boils down to the fact that 50 to 60% of the farming communities stated in the past 5 years that they have a good working relationship with SAPs. But due to the fact that there are allegations of police corruption now involved in the issue at Senekal, and it has become a contentious issue, I think it is a thing that needs to be seriously addressed by SAP's top management. But we cannot overgeneralize and say that all police officials are bad and they are corrupt. There are still pockets of excellence in the police that is delivering a very good service to the farming communities. So I think there are really some aspects of the strategy, like you mentioned, and the resources and capacity also that was highlighted by the Human Rights Commission in their 2017 report that needs serious attention by the SAPs.
All right.
And the stock theft units, specifically the capacity and the manpower of these units.
I want to ask you about two aspects and ask you to, address them candidly for me. The one argument that says farmers are being systematically targeted in South Africa for murder, for killings, and the extreme end of that argument saying that there's actually a genocide against white farmers in South Africa. What's your sense of that?
I need to refer you to a report that we have compiled, and that was over a period of 4 years. The extent was over a period of 4 years. And we focused on all the farm attacks and murders in the Free State. And just to give a quick breakdown of that analysis, we actually had 200 farm attacks. In the Free State, we had 27 murders. Of the 200 farm attacks, 98 producers were targeted. Of the 102 left of the 200, it was workers, it was foremen on farms, it was upcoming farmers, and it was people living on farms that were also targeted of the 102. Of the 27 murders, it's usually 7 producers, 11 workers that were targeted, together the foreman inclusive in that category. So I need to say this, and our figures from April 1st of April to the 30th of September this year, it's usually a 40, 60 or 50-50 breakdown in categories of producers and workers, on the other hand, being targeted on farms.
I think the answer is very clear from what you are saying there, using those figures. Jane, let me ask you the last one then. The other argument that seeks to say that while we are talking about the safety on in rural communities and on farms in South Africa, we cannot ignore the real and pressing issues around socio-economic justice in this country, as well as issues around land reform. And the argument, perhaps if taken to its full extent, suggesting perhaps that this is the context in which this lack of empathy is sometimes expressed in some of these communities, in that there are grievances in that in some of the farming communities, for instance, around the treatment of farm workers. What do you say to those who say we should tackle that head on, even as we discuss the issues of safety and security on farms?
Yeah, definitely. I think there is really, like Free State Agriculture has 7 committees. We're focusing on rural safety and a lot of other aspects, infrastructure, commercial, agricultural development, etc., the socioeconomic conditions, also land reform, etc. So I think it's a comprehensive system and a strategy that needs to be put into place. And the whole of the communities needs to participate in this. And I think we are only part of the bigger communities, and we need to address the issues as it comes up that needs sufficient attention, and we need to look at. that, all the aspects that maybe makes and produce friction in communities.
All right, Jane Bays, I've got to thank you for your candid engagement there on these issues that we've been discussing around the situation in Senekal, but also some of the issues in the context that they do bring up from time to time, especially when you now look at the responses to the incident in Senekal. Jane Bays there from Free State Agriculture weighing in on that story.